Whenever my boyfriend gets angry, he leaves me anywhere, and when I got home, I found him. The first time he left me on the side of the road, I told myself it was just anger talking. The second time, standing alone under a flickering streetlight, I realized it was a choice. My name is Mia Carter, and for a long time, I thought love meant staying quiet so someone else wouldn't feel controlled. Whenever my boyfriend Evan got angry, he had the same response. He'd pull over and tell me to get out. It didn't matter where we were. A busy highway, a random side street, somewhere unfamiliar. As long as he could stop the car, he'd leave me there and drive off. No checking if I had a ride. No asking if I was safe. Just silence, then taillights. At first, our arguments were small. I'd ask him not to talk to me a certain way. I'd point out something that hurt my feelings. He'd sigh and say I was trying to control him, that I was nagging. Eventually, I learned to soften my voice, to pause before speaking, to swallow words that felt reasonable just to keep the peace. Then I found proof he was cheating. Screenshots, messages, dates and times that didn't lie, no matter how much he tried to explain them away. That night, we were sitting in his car. It was late, the kind of quiet where everything feels heavier. I showed him the evidence, my hands shaking even though my voice stayed calm. I honestly thought, this time, we'll talk. He'll have to. Instead, he went cold. Without saying much, he turned down a narrow street and stopped. "Get out," he said. I stared at him, waiting for the joke that never came. When I didn't move fast enough, he raised his voice, so I opened the door. He dropped me in a dark alley. No shops, no people, just shadows and the sound of the engine pulling away. I stood there frozen, trying not to panic, when an elderly man across the street noticed what was happening. He saw Evan yelling, saw me left there, and immediately came over. He didn't ask many questions, just told me it wasn't safe and called someone he knew. A few minutes later, 2 men arrived and made sure I got to a bus stop that could take me home. I remember thanking them over and over, embarrassed and grateful at the same time. It was already past 9 p.m. when I finally reached my house. That's when I saw Evan's car parked outside. Inside, he was already talking to my family, calm, polite, concerned. According to him, we'd argued at a mall and I had suddenly stormed off. He said he waited, assumed I'd gone home on my own, and eventually left because he thought I was already safe. Every word was a lie. When I tried to explain what really happened, my family brushed it aside. They didn't want to hear it. The cheating proof I showed them? They said I misunderstood, that I was being emotional, that Evan was a good guy who loved me. It hurt more than I expected. Not just what he did, but how easily they believed him. It felt like I was invisible, like my fear didn't count because he fit the version of a boyfriend they wanted for me. Evan asked for another chance. He promised he'd never leave me like that again. He said it was a mistake, that he'd lost control. But here's the thing I can't ignore. He didn't do it once, he did it twice. And the second time he did it when he was the one who cheated. I keep asking myself the same quiet question. If someone can abandon you when they're angry, what will they do the next time they feel justified? Love isn't supposed to feel like fear disguised as forgiveness, and being left alone in the dark, emotionally or physically, should never be the price of staying with someone. Sometimes the hardest part isn't walking away from a person. It's accepting that the people around you might not walk with you. The moment I realized my family didn't believe me, something inside me went quiet. Not dramatic, not angry, just settled. I was the one paying the bills. Rent, groceries, utilities. I'd been doing it so long that it felt normal, like gravity. Somewhere along the way, I became the responsible one. The backup plan, the safety net. And yet, when I said I was scared, when I said I'd been left alone in the dark by the man they trusted more than me, it didn't matter. That's when I understood something I'd been avoiding. Being the breadwinner doesn't mean you're respected. Sometimes it just means you're useful. I didn't announce my decision. I didn't threaten anyone or demand apologies. I just started planning quietly. I opened a new bank account in my name only. I redirected my salary. I stopped offering to cover just this one bill or just until next month. Each small step felt rebellious, like I was breaking an invisible rule that said my life belonged to everyone else. At night, I lay awake replaying everything. Evan's calm voice as he lied, my family nodding along, the way my proof had been dismissed so easily. I kept asking myself if I was being cruel for pulling away. Then I remembered the alley, the darkness, the strangers who cared more about my safety than the people who raised me. That guilt slowly turned into clarity. I found a small place on the other side of the city. Nothing fancy, just quiet. A door that locked, a space that felt like mine. When I signed the lease, my hands shook, not from fear, but from the weight of choosing myself for the first time. The day I moved out, my family was shocked. They asked how they'd manage. They asked why I was being distant. No one asked why I'd felt abandoned. No one asked why I stopped trusting them. So I didn't explain anymore. I told them I needed space. I told them I'd help when I could, not because I was expected to, and for the first time, I meant it. Cutting financial support wasn't revenge. It was boundaries. It was me saying, I can't keep sacrificing myself to be believed someday. Evan tried reaching out again. Apologies. Promises. Familiar words that once would have pulled me back in. But something had shifted. I wasn't desperate to be understood anymore. I was tired of explaining pain to people who benefited from ignoring it. Living alone was quieter than I expected, peaceful even. Some nights were lonely, sure. Healing isn't loud or cinematic. It's slow mornings, steady routines, and learning to trust your own instincts again. I didn't escape my family out of hatred. I left because staying was teaching me to doubt myself. And I promised myself this. I will never again fund a life where my voice doesn't matter. I came back to the house a week after moving out. Not because I missed it, but because there were things I needed to say while I still had the courage to say them. My family was in the living room when I arrived, the TV on, but no one really watching. The moment they saw me, I could feel the tension shift. My mother spoke first. She asked if I'd cooled off yet. That word, cooled off, told me everything. I sat down across from them and told them I wasn't there to argue. I said I needed them to listen, just once, without correcting me, without explaining Evan for me. They exchanged looks, the kind that says they already know what they're going to believe. So I started anyway. I told them exactly what happened that night, where he dropped me, how dark it was, how a stranger had stepped in because the man they trusted didn't. I explained how small I felt standing there, and how terrified I'd been walking home alone. My voice shook at first, then steadied. The truth has a way of doing that, my father interrupted. He said Evan wouldn't do something like that on purpose. I nodded and said, he did it twice. That made the room go quiet. I pulled out my phone and showed them the proof again. Not because I thought it would change their minds, but because I was done hiding it. Messages, dates, the cheating they'd brushed off as a misunderstanding. I said I wasn't asking them to hate him. I was asking them to believe me. My mother sighed and said relationships are complicated, that men make mistakes, that I shouldn't throw everything away over anger. That's when something in me finally snapped, not loudly, but cleanly. I told them I wasn't leaving because of one argument. I was leaving because I'd been abandoned, lied about, and dismissed in my own home. I said the hardest part wasn't Evan's betrayal. It was realizing that my safety mattered less than their image of him. Then I said the part I'd been rehearsing in my head for days. I've been supporting this family for years, I said. And the one time I needed support back, I was told I was overreacting. They tried to interrupt me again, but I kept going. I told them I wasn't cutting them off to punish them. I was stepping back because I couldn't keep paying for a place where my voice carried no weight. I said I needed distance, financially and emotionally, to heal. My father looked stunned. My mother looked hurt. And for a moment, I almost backed down. But then I remembered the alley, the dark, the silence after Evan drove away. So I stood up. I told them I loved them, but love without respect wasn't enough anymore. That I hoped one day they'd understand why I chose myself. And if they didn't, I said, I'd still be okay. No one followed me to the door. When I stepped outside, I felt something unexpected. Relief. Not because it was over, but because I'd finally told the truth without shrinking it to fit someone else's comfort. For the first time in a long while, I walked away without looking back. And this time I wasn't being left behind. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. I noticed it first during my commute, missed calls stacking up faster than I could read the names. My mother, my aunt, my cousin, numbers I hadn't saved but somehow already recognized. I silenced the phone and told myself I'd deal with it later. By the time I reached work, my chest felt tight. I was barely at my desk when the screen lit up again. Evan's name. Declined. Another call immediately after. Then another. Messages followed, long paragraphs broken into bubbles that kept appearing even when I didn't open them. Please answer. We need to talk. Your family is worried. You're making this worse than it has to be. I stared at the words longer than I should have. The phrase your family is worried felt like a strategy, not concern. A reminder that everyone else had already been looped in without my consent. At mid-morning, my manager walked by and raised an eyebrow. I apologized and turned my phone completely off, something I'd never done before. The silence was uncomfortable at first, like standing without armor, but also strangely peaceful. During lunch, I checked my voicemail. There were dozens. Some were angry, some were crying, some were kind in tone but sharp underneath, all circling the same message. Just talk to him. Just come home. You're being stubborn. Evan left the longest ones. He talked like nothing had really happened, like this was a misunderstanding we could smooth over if I'd just be reasonable. He said he loved me, that he missed me, that I was hurting everyone by pulling away. What he never said was, I'm sorry I left you. What he never said was, you didn't deserve that. By early afternoon, the stress started showing. My hands shook when I tried to type. I messed up a report I'd done 100 times before. Every buzz from my phone, even though it was still off, felt imaginary but real at the same time. When I turned my phone back on after work, the flood resumed immediately. Evan called within seconds. I let it ring. then my mother, then Evan again. I didn't answer any of them. For the first time, I understood something clearly. They weren't calling because they were worried about me. They were calling because I disrupted the version of events they were comfortable with. My silence was something they couldn't control, and that scared them. That night, I sent one message to everyone. I'm at work, I'm safe, I need space, please stop calling. I didn't explain, I didn't justify, I didn't apologize. The phone finally went quiet. I sat on my bed in my small apartment, the city humming outside the window, and felt the exhaustion settle into my bones. It wasn't relief yet, not fully, but it was something close. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't reacting. I was choosing, and that felt like the beginning of something new. It came on a normal Tuesday while I was drinking cold coffee at my desk and realizing I hadn't felt safe in weeks. That's when I blocked Evan. Not dramatically, no announcement, just one tap after another. Calls, messages, social media, email. I didn't wait for the perfect explanation or the right emotional state. I understood then that closure doesn't always come from conversation. Sometimes it comes from distance. My family was harder. I didn't block them completely, but I set limits. I muted the group chats. I stopped responding to guilt disguised as concern. When my mother called again and again, I finally answered. Not to argue, but to be clear. I told her I was taking space. I said I wouldn't discuss Evan anymore. And if the calls continued, I would stop answering altogether. My voice didn't shake this time. That surprised both of us. After that, I documented everything. Screenshots, call logs, voicemails, dates, and times. I never thought I'd need to protect myself from people I once trusted, but reality doesn't ask for permission. A friend helped me understand my options, how harassment works legally, what boundaries I was allowed to enforce without apologizing for them. Knowing I had choices changed everything. I didn't need to file anything in the end. Just knowing I could was enough. Evan tried one last time, using a different number, leaving a message that sounded softer, sadder. I deleted it without listening all the way through. That was the moment I knew I was done. Emotionally, the healing wasn't instant. Some nights I still replayed the alley in my head. The fear, the humiliation, the way my own story had been questioned. But those memories lost their sharp edges over time. They became reminders instead of wounds. I learned to trust myself again in small ways. Choosing where to eat. Sleeping without checking my phone. Walking home without feeling watched. Peace didn't arrive loudly. It settled in quietly, like it had been waiting for permission. Months later, my family reached out differently. Fewer accusations, more listening. I kept my boundaries firm. Love, I realized, doesn't mean access. It means respect. As for Evan, he faded into someone I used to know. I don't hate him. I don't need revenge. What I needed was to stop explaining myself to people who benefited from my silence. The hardest truth I accepted was this. Leaving didn't make me cold. Staying would have made me disappear. Now, when I think back to the night I was left in the dark, I don't see it as the moment I was abandoned. I see it as the moment I started finding my way out. And this time, I didn't look back. One evening, months later, I was washing dishes in my small apartment when it hit me. I wasn't bracing for anything. No footsteps, no raised voices, no sudden apologies followed by excuses. The silence around me wasn't heavy anymore. It was gentle. That's when I understood I was safe. I stopped waiting for my family to fully understand. I stopped hoping Evan would someday say the right words. Healing didn't require either of those things. It required me to stop reopening doors that had already shown me where they led. I learned that love doesn't leave you stranded to prove a point. That concern doesn't need persuasion. And that being strong doesn't mean enduring what breaks you. There are still days I feel sadness for the version of me who tried so hard to be believed. I treat her kindly now. She did the best she could with what she knew. And when she finally knew better, she left. If anyone hears this story and recognizes themselves in it, this is what I want them to know. You don't need permission to choose safety. You don't owe loyalty to people who rewrite your pain. And walking away doesn't mean you failed. It means you listened. My life didn't become perfect after that, but it became honest, quiet, mine. And for the first time, that was enough. Years later, I sometimes pass places that remind me of who I used to be. The girl who waited on sidewalks, who stayed quiet to keep the peace, who thought love meant enduring discomfort. I don't stop anymore. What once felt like fear now feels distant, like a memory that no longer belongs to my body. I learned that safety isn't something you beg for. It's something you choose, even when choosing it costs you familiarity, approval, or comfort. My family and I found a new balance. Not perfect, but honest. They learned that access to me came with respect, and I learned that forgiveness doesn't require forgetting what taught you to protect yourself. As for him, he exists only as a lesson now, not a wound. I built a life where no one leaves me behind when emotions rise. A life where arguments end in conversations, not abandonment. A life where I am believed, even when I speak softly. And every night when I come home, I arrive safely. Not because someone brought me there, but because I chose my own way back. The end. Thank you for watching. Please hit subscribe and like if you loved these videos.